All right. Now I'm excited to welcome the panelists, Dale, Marion, and Sylvia, who will be sharing more about their stories throughout today's webinar. Our moderator is Dana Morrow, who is also the support group leader for the Spouses and Partners support group. So that's a great group to continue discussing the important topics that will be discussed during today's webinar. So welcome to our fabulous panel and to our moderator. Over to you, Dana.
Thank you, Lori. Welcome, everyone. Before we begin, I just wanted to go to each one of our panelists and have them introduce themselves and say what type of ataxia that their spouse has, and to give you just a little bit of information about themselves. So I'm going off of my screen. So Dale, I'm going to start with you. If you could just start us off.
Okay. My name is Dale Morgan, and Connie is my wife. We've been sharing life together for the past 52 years. So it's been a while. Connie and I live in Wauseon, Ohio, in the United States. It's a small city of about 7,000 or so people. It's about 35 miles west of Toledo. That maybe puts it for some people to know where it's at. So Connie, this is a hereditary thing that she's got. So she's technically been with it all of her life, but without knowing it, because ataxia is, well, at that time was almost unheard of. So we were married in 1972. Yeah, that's right, 1972. I'll get it right after a while. So, and basically, we'd been married for about 2 years. And after the birth of Sabrina in 1974, she began to have some stumbling problems and that sort of thing. So we started checking with doctors and getting no answers or what they thought was the matter and things like that. So
here we are.
Yeah, here we are. So finally, a neurologist we went to said, we have what I consider the world's best knowledgeable person in this area, close at hand, in the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, Michigan, Dr. Sid Gilman. And so he referred us up there, and he did a lot of testing and stuff, and a very thorough examination. And a few weeks later says, here's what you've got. You've got ataxia. We call it OPCR for short. OPCA. OPCA for short. You told me what that big long word was, but I can't say it. So I just call it OPCA. So that was about 10 years after she started having problems that we actually had a diagnosis and knowing what was going on. So,
Dale, I'm sure that many people on the call will be able to identify with you in that. So thank you for that introduction. I'm going to move to Sylvia right now. So Sylvia, could you just introduce yourself and say what type of ataxia your spouse had?
Yes, hey, very nice to be here. Thank you for including me in this, Laura. My name is Sylvia Wadsworth. My husband was Bill Wadsworth. I'm currently in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. However, we also have a home up in Mount Airy, Maryland. Bill was getting his support care through Johns Hopkins. We had an opportunity to buy a ranch house right next to our son, and who said, how much longer, Mom, do you think you can take care of Dad by yourself? So that was a good thing. So right now I'm kind of back and forth. Bill was diagnosed in 2012 with Mikado Joseph's disease, SCA3, also a hereditary disease, but he did not really show any symptoms of that until he was close to 70. He battled this disease for 11 years. Unfortunately, last April, he suffered a heart attack, which catapulted his symptoms right to the end, and we lost him 2 weeks later.
Sorry about that, Sylvia,
Thanks.
but I'm glad that you could be with us today. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Marion, I'm going to go to you next.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. It's great to be involved. I'm Marianne, and I have been with Carol, my wife, since 1998. We were married in 2013. Carol's younger brother, he's 4 years younger than her, was diagnosed with ataxia around 2002. Carol went around 2000, just before 2007, to be tested and was diagnosed with Friedreich's ataxia. So Carol is also, well, was also on, or is also now, an occupational therapist, but has been medically retired. We've been sharing our marriage with ataxia for a very long time, and it can be difficult, but it's okay. We live in the UK. We also have a home in France, and we use that almost as rehabilitation for Carol because we're doing a house up.
Thank you, Marion. I'm happy that you're here with us.
Thank you.
And my name is Dana Morrow. My husband, John, has ataxia. He has sporadic unknown ataxia. He was first diagnosed in 2006. We found the Ataxia Foundation in 2009 and have been actively involved ever since. And he's just an Energizer bunny. He is very determined not to let this get him. He has a very good attitude, and I think for that reason, he's still walking around. He looks a little funny when he does it and has some difficulty, but he's still able to walk around. So I'm really excited to be part of this webinar, and I'm also really thrilled that I could be the leader of the spouses support group, because I feel as though, you know, we need a network where we can help one another and, you know, get resources to one another. So this webinar is also set up to give you some information. When we were looking to create this webinar, we thought of 4 main topics, and we're going to cover those topics today. So some of the topics were communication, transitioning from one stage to the next, impact on intimacy, and also care of self. So we're going to be hitting on each of those topics, and I have the good fortune of moderating this. So communication is our first topic. So the question is, how can we normalize talking about ataxia with our immediate family and friends? I think it's a really important thing to do. And I'm going to toss this to Dale, who's going to lead us in that conversation. How do you normalize talking about this, Dale?
How do you normalize talking about it? Well, basic thing is you do have to talk about it. And people ask questions. Basically, as it progresses, it becomes more obvious to the people around you that something is wrong. And so they commonly, you know, ask questions, and the best policy is to give some answers and so forth. So more advanced we go here.
Yeah, I think that it's important to create that atmosphere of allowing people to ask questions. What do you guys think about that, right? Like making it known that it's okay to ask questions about this. There's a lot of things they might not realize about the disease.
Right, yeah. And it depends on the person that's asking, the reason there might be asking, of how much information you might want to give to them, or, you know, try to explain it. Don't try to explain everything, you know, about it at all, because 9 times out of 10, they're not that interested. They're probably more curious about it. Will I catch it? You know, is it contagious? Will I catch it if I get around this person? And so I basically want to let them know right up front, no, there's not. By kind of saying, you know, it's a hereditary thing, and you're not going to catch it. I carry a little card around in my pocket a lot of times from the University of Michigan Hospital with the name of it completely written out in all 18 letters or whatever it takes to write it out on it. And I usually just show that to people sometimes, and that'll give me a clue on how interested they might really be. A lot of times that does it for them, and they're satisfied. If they ask more questions, then you can answer the questions if they actually are interested, and so forth.
Dale, I'm wondering about family. So what you were describing just now is really impactful to someone that you just bump into or you run into and you don't know that well. What about family members? What's the importance of having that open communication with people in the family?
Okay. In the family is more important because those are the people you associate with more, and particularly our family. We had two daughters, Christina, which was here this morning, and Sabrina, which unfortunately passed away when she's 19. But the first things we needed to talk to them about, actually in their teenage years, was the idea that there was some testing that could be done because being hereditary, it can be passed on. And so the question was there, okay, are they going to have it, or is this a possibility? And so we sort of talked to them in their late teens, early 20s about, whether or not they wanted this testing done or not. And neither one of them did. Of course, Sabrina didn't have that opportunity or need to, but Christina said no, she didn't want to. And she's just turned 50 and hasn't showed any signs. So this is a great thing, and they tell us if it jumps a generation, then it'll be gone. It won't be there. So that's a good thing. So the grandchildren and stuff, they need to know what grandma has a little bit, whatever they want to know, but they don't have to be concerned about whether or not they're going to get it.
That is a good thing.
Yeah.
So in talking about ataxia with friends, family, we also probably want to talk about it with our spouses. So talk a little bit about how you have that open and honest communication with your spouse about ataxia.
Okay. Yeah. Of course, having an honest communication with your spouse about anything, okay, should be just that. It needs to be honest and so forth. I think we've been pretty fortunate with that sort of thing, that we look at things together, and talk about what's happening and so forth. I actually started about that time. I actually went in when she went in to see the doctor and so forth. I'd go in with her so that we had the communication there. I wasn't picking it up secondhand, whatever she would tell me that the doctor would say, that I had it firsthand, and we discuss things that way. And sometimes things get very difficult. If one of us says, we really need to talk about this situation, then we know we need to sit down and give it some real good time, because it progresses on it. So you've got different situations coming up at different times that you need to talk about. Okay, we may have to modify life a little bit here or there to accommodate certain situations, particularly when she advanced. She started using a cane back, I don't know, in the late 1990s or something in there. And so then that starts showing up, to other people and whatever, and to the family as well. And extended family, when we get together at times, some of them really want to know, okay, is there something we can do help or whatever, and that sort of thing. So basically, yeah, it's definitely a conversation. Whatever, when we have to make, you know, some changes and things. We love to travel, for one thing. We love to travel, and it has gotten to the point where basically any traveling we do now, we almost have to do it by automobile. We went to Hawaii back in, I think, 2018, which was and had a good thing there. And we've been to Alaska, which we flew in and stuff. But after that, basically wherever we go, because we have to be able to stop whenever we need to, you know, because of these things, talk about things like that.
Yeah, you're bringing up some really great points. And I want to go back to one of the things that you said early on, and that was the importance of communication in general. You know, any married couple, any family member, like there is a very large need for communication and making sure that we are clear with what we are communicating with each other. So that doesn't change when somebody has an illness or when somebody has a condition. It actually becomes more important to have those conversations. And I know one of the things that we talked about when we were planning for this is that it can be hard, and acknowledging that it can be hard, but you still have to have the conversation because it's very important. So before I move on to the next topic, I just want to give Sylvia and Marion an opportunity to chime in on this communication topic if there's any points that you would like to bring forward that we may not have talked about yet.
I think you did great.
I was just about to say the same.
There's always a lot more we can say, but we probably need to move on.
Yeah, okay, terrific. So at this point, we're going to talk about transitions. So what happens when your symptoms are getting a little bit worse? So, Dale, how can we grow and evolve as the change happens? I mean, you mentioned something about when you needed to introduce the walker. So that's a change. What else can we do as these changes start to occur?
Okay. Well, since you really don't know in advance exactly what to expect, or, you know, at least when we started out, we had no clue of what really to expect. And so as things got worse, then you know, okay, something has to be done. Of course, we visited the doctor at least once a year, most of the time twice a year, or more if you needed. And so it was actually when she went to using the cane, it was actually at the suggestion of Dr. Gilman. So you know, so he made the suggestion, and so we picked that up and learned to use it and so forth. And that went pretty good, particularly along with other people and so forth. And also when the walker became necessary, it was actually the doctor that said, you know, it's time to move on to something more stable. And these things are a little bit hard to accept because you down deep inside, you really don't want to admit, you know, that I can't walk on my own anymore. And, you know, if you was to talk to Connie, I'm sure she would tell you more about that. In fact, she's sitting right here. So I gotta tell it right because she's sitting right here listening. All right.
But I think you bring up a very valid point. Sometimes you have to get other doctors involved. Sometimes you have to just know when it's the right time to bring help into the home. And sometimes you need to know when it's the right time to do modifications because it's no longer safe, right? So I think all of those things, you see as this transitions along?
One of the, staying on the same topic there for a moment, one of the big things we've seen with when she went to the walker is that other people looking at her was uncomfortable. And when they got uncomfortable, then they wanted her to move to a wheelchair real quick. And we didn't want to do that. So that can be a problem.
Yeah, that can be a problem.
Yeah.
I know my husband talks a lot about having different tools in his toolbox. And so
Yeah.
depending upon the situation, he will use different things. So he has a scooter, he has a wheelchair, he has a cane, and it just depends on where we're going, what tool he decides to bring with him. And most often it's a visual cue to other people, more so than it might be a real need of his. So that's just something for everyone to keep in mind. Like, what are the tools in your toolbox and when should you bring them out?
Yeah, what are the tools and where do you go with them? Yeah, these things causes real problems sometimes.
All right, so in going a little bit deeper into this, there are also changes that we notice happening with cognition in how our partners are thinking about things, just the different choices that they're making. So Marion, I want to toss this to you. How do we manage and address cognitive changes that we may be seeing in our partners or spouses?
We manage it with difficulty and a lot of sensitivity. Because it's never easy. And what I have found is that I was more aware quicker than Carol of some cognitive changes. And trying to raise this with someone who is, I would use the term pre-morbidly, so pre-ataxia, extremely bright, extremely clever, very on the ball, trying to raise the fact that, do you know what, you're not remembering things is a difficult thing to do. And it's a case of having to, for me, I think it's a case of having to bite your tongue until there is a little insight there from themselves, and you can then start to discuss it. Again, it is really, really useful, I think, if another professional raises the question and asks, have you noticed anything? Because this is something that is a part and parcel of ataxia, whether it's due to the degenerative changes, whether it's due to fatigue. Regardless, it is something that presents. So I think liaising with professionals and keeping the communication open, to be aware that the cognitive changes do result, quite understandably, in emotional frustration on both your part and their part. And this needs to be talked about in the way that Dale has spoken about just now. Open and honest communication between you is absolutely essential. And for myself, even with cognitive changes, Carol and I use an awful lot of black humor. And, you know, it just helps us to break the ice and accept and move on a little bit more every time something comes up.
Yeah, I would agree. Humor is really, can come in very handy in these kinds of situations. So I would just like to also put an exclamation point on the fact that there is a piece of ataxia that can affect someone cognitively. It doesn't always affect them cognitively. So I'll put that disclaimer on there. But we, in my spouses group, we have many conversations about the cognitive decline that we are seeing and how to address that. So Sylvia, I don't know if your spouse had any cognitive issues and if you have anything you could share from that experience.
Bill's issues were more physical. He was experiencing some memory loss, which he was not acknowledging. But I did find, that writing, I would have to remind him about things, and we would try to do notes, and I'd try to write things down, and so that we could share it, those kind of ways. His tremors were getting very, very bad, so he couldn't use the phone and the computer the way he always had, which was a difficult thing, also for him. But his was more of a physical deterioration, although he did have some cognitive loss.
Okay, all right. Yes, so it is going to vary, but I guess my call out for the spouses and the caregivers would be, if you are noticing some of these cognitive changes, don't discount them, because it could very well be attributed to the ataxia.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Dana, a strategy that Carol has adopted for herself. She now keeps a diary, and she notes in the diary on a daily basis the tasks that she's achieved, so that at the end of the day, if she's feeling particularly fatigued or feels that she hasn't done much, she can reflect back and see that during the week she has been productive. It's just at certain times she doesn't feel as if she has, but having that is really, really good.
That's a great piece of advice. I love that. Thank you. All right, so moving on to our next topic is the impact that this ataxia has on intimacy. So, Marion, what are some strategies to accept some of those intimacy changes that you start to experience?
I think the main thing is to understand and accept that intimacy changes in all relationships as the relationship develops. That's perfectly natural, normal. If you've got a partner who has ataxia, it changes in ways that you wouldn't have anticipated. So, for example, doing things that were just subconscious displays of affection previously. For example, when you pass one another, you give them a little tickle on the neck or just rub the hollow of their back. There's no way that I can do that now, because it could result in a hyperreflexive reaction. Carol could lose her balance and fall. She becomes very anxious and startled by it. And it's not a pleasant experience any longer. So, if I want a cuddle, or I think she needs a cuddle, it's, come on, let's have a cuddle. Fancy a cuddle now, I need a hug. So we verbally cue each other in, so that I know that she's physically ready and able and wanting some form of physical intimacy, and I do the same. And what that means is that the moments of intimacy, or the periods of intimacy, they stop being spontaneous, because you cannot be spontaneous when your spouse has ataxia. But what you do have is a very gentle and precious periods within your daily, weekly routines, and that's great. And I think it's really important to ensure that you do retain and maintain those moments of intimacy, because Carol speaks of feeling very alienated. Nobody wants to hug her. They're scared of her falling. This is family, friends, and she feels, whereas she always has been, and we are very demonstrative physically. We'll hug, we'll kiss. It's what we do. She now feels that some of that has been lost. So, as a spouse, to try and work together to maintain moments of intimacy, I think is really, really important.
I agree with you. Sylvia, I see you nodding your head. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
I want to say, first of all, I would agree with everything that that Marion has said, and I hope I can back up some of the things that she said. I think what we need to remember here is this is a we thing. This is not just the person that has a ataxia, but it's a we thing. I just saw, I don't know if any of the rest of you saw, but a Parkinson's ad just this last week on television that was really expressing that and saying if your partner had Parkinson's disease, you know, you have Parkinson's disease too, because you're sharing, you don't physically have that disease, but you are sharing what's going on. So I think that's one thing that we need to. We really work very hard to count our blessings every day, to recall our happy memories, to hug and kiss, to sleep with each other. We were able to continue to sleep with each other for as long as we, as you can. Recognizing we all make mistakes. We've got to be able to laugh at ourselves, and we've got to be able to seek new ways, as Dale has said, to manage these situations as this deterioration journey continues. But just saying, I love you, understanding we're on this journey together, that this is a we thing. I think this is just so important. Hug, kiss, snuggle on the couch, listen to your favorite music and your favorite shows together, and just joke, as you've said, and laughing together and showing gratitude for all that you have together. I know we've also talked about from the communication side, but I think as far as intimacy is concerned, Bill's speech had gotten so bad that it was so difficult for him to feel like he could effectively communicate with me, for me to understand. And I know it was very frustrating for him, very frustrating for me to have to keep asking him over and over again, to repeat things. So, I think we have caregivers have got to understand we don't want to play the blame game. We don't want to be blaming our partner, our spouse. We don't want to be blaming ourselves when we don't understand, and we have to ask to repeat. I think some of the hardest things to say is, I'm sorry, I was wrong, I love you, I'm just learning, I need to work on my patience, but still always keeping that feeling of hope for the future. So I think that kind of goes along with our communications. As far as cognitive and keeping the intimacy, like I said, maybe writing things down, sharing things that you do together that way, particularly when the communication is, really gotten very hard. And I think both Dale and Maureen already said this, the setting of some boundaries. You've got to decide, what can your partner still do for themselves? What do you need to help them do, particularly when the safety questions come in? And I know that's been brought up, just asking the questions, what can I do to be helpful to you? What do you feel like you can still do yourself? How do you think we can better communicate, and what signals, as the speech gets worse, maybe can we share in order to be able to keep that intimacy and be able to better communicate.
Sylvia, if I could just add on to that, because you're absolutely right. And one of the things that we could look at is, what are other ways that we can communicate with each other if verbally there's been a real large impact, right? So like, could we write down things to each other? Like, what else could we do? So yeah, I think
the problem with that, and Bill, was tremors were getting so bad that, that he could hardly, write anything down anymore. And so that made it even more frustrating for him.
That does make it frustrating.
Yeah.
And some married couples, like, they just look at each other. So Dale, I would imagine this is true for you, being married as long as you have, because I've also been married quite a while, and I can just know by a look Like that says it all. So,
Well, we were married for almost 60 years, so I get
so
that
you
too.
know that too. Yeah, exactly. So you get to know those certain patterns and the looks and the habits. So yeah, yeah.
But thinking
So
positively and realizing you're in this together and supporting each other, I think those are probably the key things to keep that intimacy going.
I think you're right, Sylvia. Thank you so much. That was really terrific. And you addressed a lot of the things that we were going to talk about in how to preserve the relationship. So a lot of the things that you talked about was, saying I love you and giving kisses and hugs. And those are ways to preserve that relationship just in general, but especially when we have a spouse that has ataxia. Yeah. All right, so that brings us to our final topic of conversation today, which is care of self. Why is it so important that we take care of ourselves as caregivers and spouses while we're caring for our spouse or partner? So Dale, I'm gonna direct this to you to tell us why it's so important that we take care of ourselves.
Okay. Main thing is if you if you become ill or injured or whatever, and incapacitated in any way, then you can't help anybody else. So you've got to stay on top of the game. I thank God that so far I have very good health. And Connie has reasonably good health, except for the ataxia and one other problem she has in the past 3 years. Another rare disease thing is, I can't pronounce that word either, but it's with her eyes, that her eyelid closes, so she can't see. She can have good vision and it closes down, so technically she's blind at times. So she's taking Botox shots every 3 months to try to help that out. And recently started a new treatment, which is just about as painful to look at as to do. So you have those problems. Of course, there's different things in keeping healthy. There's diets and stuff. I took advantage of the opportunity back during this pandemic thing. They had wound up getting laid off from work, so I had time and I had money because they paid us ridiculous money for being off work. And I took a course in natural medicine.
Yeah.
Now, if I could remember everything I learned back then, it'd really be good. But that helped to a large extent to know about doing diets and things like that, and exercise. Our insurance company pays, for the gym, so I have access to that, and then I feel guilty when I don't go. But so these things are very important to keep your health up so that you can benefit, because as this disease progresses, unfortunately, they do lose abilities, which comes back to a question that was asked a while ago, and I really didn't answer, about modifications to the house and so forth, which is very important also. The optimum time would be before you buy a house or before you build one. Then you could build in larger hallways, bigger bathrooms, bigger bedrooms, and everything. And do as much as you can earlier. Grab bars, particularly in the bathroom. The bathroom needs a lot of grab bars here, there, and wherever. Other places in the house do too. Can prolong the time period, I think, of when the person can actually walk and stuff more on their own. And to be able to shower and take baths more if the bathroom is set up for that. Now,
yeah,
the
it
entrance to
fosters
bathrooms,
independence too.
yes.
Yeah.
The I don't know why it is, but they always seem to make bathroom doors narrower than other doors, so a wheelchair usually don't fit through. And our experience was that Connie broke her leg in 2004. And when she was coming out of rehab, of course, they kept her in rehab as long as the insurance was paying for it. I don't think she had to be that quick. So they told us one day that she'd be let out the next day. And so I measured the wheelchair, measured the bathroom door, and I said, this ain't gonna work. So I went home that day. We had a nice long closet about halfway across the bedroom. Bedroom and the bathroom was next to each other, except for that closet going across there. I went home, took out the wall between the bathroom and the closet, made a larger door, right? Now I had to trim that up later, but it did the trick. We could get her in and out of the bathroom. At one point, we also bought a standing lift so that when she wasn't able to walk, I could move her around. That helped a lot. Shower heads, whether you're using a shower or a bathtub, a handheld shower head is almost a must. Also, at home, we use what they call a shower bench, which is one that actually sticks out beyond the bathtub and you slide across it. When we travel, we take with us a shower chair, which will fit in either a shower, most tubs, or into a walk-in shower. So these things are important for that sort of thing.
They're very important. So we're getting close to that time where I do want to stop and take some questions. But before I do, there's two other things when we talk about caring for ourselves that I just want to mention. I think they're important to mention. One is strategies to combat loneliness and why that is important, because as things change, you could feel isolated from your spouse or not as close to your spouse, and you could get lonely. And so, Sylvia, what do you have as a recommendation for that?
Okay. I think I need to say, first of all, that and this is your whole point you're getting to, is that we have to take care of ourselves before we can be effective in taking care of somebody else. So we've got to be aware of our own physical, mental, and emotional health. And this combating of loneliness can become very, important. I was 24/7 basically caregiver for Bill for 4 to 5 years. I did finally hire a caregiver to come in 3 times a week for 2 hours. This was also to help him with showering because his balance had gotten so bad, and everything that Dale just said about the importance of all of this in your bathroom is so very, very important. But having the caregiver there also gave me some time in order to get out. I used to laugh and say my favorite activity was going grocery shopping because it just kind of, got me out of the house. But you've got to, I think it's so important, and this has been said too, that for you set up your support system, your family, your friends, your support groups, whether it be on site or whether it be through your Zoom meetings. Getting professionals to help you and figuring when you need to have the the PT, the OT, the speech therapist coming into your house to give you the support that you need right there. I was very fortunate to have a retired pastor who would come into our house and visit with Bill and spend time with him so that I could get out. I like to get lost in music. So I would find myself turning the radio on real loud and getting lost in all these songs and things, which just really kind of helped me, I think, along just personally as far as some of the loneliness stuff. I think exercise is very, very important, whether you're doing that at home, whether you can find a group to walk with. We had a scooter, so we would put him on the scooter and take him to the park. This got him out, which was very good, because you've got to worry about the loneliness for your patient too, because when they can't get out and do things, you know, there's that mental and emotional deterioration for them as well. So we'd take the scooter, we'd go for walks with family and friends, and that was a very positive thing. I think that the Zoom, maybe one good thing of COVID is that we're doing all of these Zoom meetings, but you can do music group, exercise groups, talk groups, sharing groups, and all of this, I think, helps fill your time and helps you combat the loneliness that you can feel. I'm blessed with the support of family and friends, and they are, you know, have always been there to help me. And I feel so very, very blessed with that. I always knew I could call, I could text. I had all these avenues in which to reach out and help that loneliness of feeling that I struggle with. I will admit it, and I'm struggling with it even more now since I've lost my husband.
Yeah.
So, you know, that you have to do that. But when you reach a crisis situation, don't be afraid to reach out to your church, to the community, to your medical teams, to community agencies and those, in order to get the help that you need. You're not alone.
You're right.
But you've got to reach out for that support. And if you don't, then you're hurting yourself as well as the person that you're taking care of.
Yeah, that's a great point. And also we do want to mention one last thing, and then we're going to open it up for questions. I see we have a couple coming in, but you know, there is a national crisis hotline as well. So if anybody is really struggling there, that is also an option for people. And so just want to make mention of that. So I'm going to read a couple of questions that came in, and I'm going to open them up to the group. So Ellen Delgado wants to know, how can you use humor regarding cognitive changes? Can you give an example of when using humor is helpful when they don't acknowledge that they are forgetting something?
Shall I say something there?
Yes, Marion.
I think the important thing with cognitive changes is gentle humor. So if they do something and you know it's just not what you would have expected, it could be a task within preparing a meal, it could be something to do with a report they're generating, whatever it is, that instead of despairing and, you know, saying something along the lines of, well, you never used to do this, we need to change our approach to something that we will laugh about. So we change it. And I will say, you know, I'll make it into a trait that Carol has. So now, in the morning, she will generate a list, for example, and then she won't get through things, or she will forget things. And so I just say, well, this is something you do now. You make a list, you can't remember what's on it, you can't finish it. I'm just terrible because I keep saying I'm going to take Fridays off, and here I am, I'm still working. We're a right couple that way. You know, we're both as bad as each other, and I make it into a we rather than a her.
I love that.
And I always then try and finish it off, or Kaz will finish it off and say, but we're a great team, aren't we? We're better together.
I love that. That's great.
And that's how we finish it off. So it doesn't always work. You know, there are times when you just cannot change cognitive changes or any degeneration into humor. But I do think it's worth trying and making it into something that we're both experiencing in different ways. But do you know what? We're a great team.
Thank you. And I love the term gentle humor. I love that. So Darlene Romero wants to know, can we talk about other ways to continue and foster independence as long as possible? One comment I'll have is adaptive devices. And I will have two examples of that. One is a trike that is made for people with ataxia, and so that they can go bike ride if that's something that they're interested in. And there's all kinds of adaptive sports that are offered in different communities. And my husband took advantage of adaptive skiing because he loved to ski and couldn't do it anymore. So I would say that that's one thing you could do. Any other suggestions from you guys?
That technology with the tremors and not being able to push and hit the buttons, you can get some of the technology, which is audio. You can get forks, spoons, eating instruments to help you as far as the eating is concerned. Those kinds of things, I think, to help you adjust as you're going through these deteriorations. Recognizing when you need to go from the cane to the walker to the wheelchair to the power wheelchair, so that you can cope with the changes that are happening in your life.
Yeah, I agree. They have
very
writing
important-
implements too. Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah.
Very important thing for us. Dana said at the beginning that it's almost June o'clock here in the UK. And I just thought I can't answer that really without implicating myself terribly. But Carol and I do enjoy a gin and tonic. She's found out for herself that you can get the spill knot. And I think other people have got it, but that gives her the independence to be able to pour a gin and tonic for both of us and carry it over to the table or to the sofa, so that she isn't always the one sitting down waiting. She can, with the spill knot, she can carry, I mean, she's got her priorities right, but she can carry the gin and tonic, and it's a very simple low-cost device that makes a massive difference to her self-esteem.
Absolutely. We have two other questions that I'm hopeful that we can get to both. One is, what do you find helpful with choking associated with the ataxia? And one is how to deal with your spouse's periods of depression. So what about the choking?
Eat slow, small bites, recognize when you need to go on a soft food diet. Bill was pretty much on a soft food diet as recommended, by his doctors and by the speech therapist, because he had had a number of choking incidents. But making sure you're swallowing, taking a good drink after you swallow, but just slowing down the eating and eating softer foods. He was not totally on a liquid diet yet, but the slowing, and that was, I had to constantly remind him, you're putting too much in your mouth, you're swallowing before you get it all chewed up. But I think that is the thing, and being trained in Heineken in case you do have a choking situation, I think is important too.
Yeah. Good advice. And what about depression? Has anybody dealt with a spouse's depression, and how do you manage that?
Depression and loneliness goes together, I think.
Yeah,
They do too.
So you have to deal with that. I noticed Connie sort of goes through some of that now and then. It helps. I moved, do some of the stuff I used to do in my little office here, like buying this laptop for one thing, so I can move out to the living room to be with her more time. Also, she goes to an adult daycare center twice a week. They come and get her, and they bring her back home, and that gives her a chance to be out and associate, because she's a very sociable person, associate with other people without me. Also gives me some time off that way. But
Yeah.
so I try to watch out for that. And sometimes, I was talking about reading expressions to read her expression when she comes down the hall with that lost puppy dog look. You know, it's time. She definitely needs a hug, right? So you do that, and we eat out quite a bit. So we have to be, you know, watchful about that sort of thing. We don't have a lot of trouble choking and stuff, but it does happen. And I am trained in, you know, in first aid and CPR and all that stuff. I have to be for my job. Plus, 100 years ago, I was an Army medic, so you know, I can do surgery if I have to. No, that's not right.
I wouldn't recommend it though.
We don't recommend it. No.
No. All right, thank you. I want to thank the panelists. I want to thank all the questions that came in, and I'm going to turn it back over to Lori at this point. Thank you, Lori.
Oh, thank you guys so much. You've shared so many helpful insights on a variety of important topics for all of the spouses and partners in our Ataxia community. So I'm just trying to see how I can share my screen again, and I'm not seeing that setting. I'm sorry. But we have a slide with some resources here, but I don't see how to share my screen. Does anybody?
Where's Lori when you need her?
Lori,
Right.
at the bottom, it's not, if you move your cursor down to the bottom, it doesn't bring up a toolbar with that option.
I think that it went away. Maybe after I ended the show, I lost that particular setting.
Maybe.
Share screen. It's share screen one, isn't it? Have you got your?
Let's see.
Oh, there you go.
There we go. She's sharing her screen. Did you get it?
What does it look like?
No, we haven't got anything right now. It's
Nope, we didn't get it.
It's a black screen, Laurie, and but it was starting to open to your screen and then it just went black. So I'm not sure if it's on a different monitor, maybe.
Interesting. Sorry, I can't seem to get.
Oh,
No.
when you were coming out of that screen, it started to populate, but it just went away again.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why it's not displaying, because I can see it and you guys can't see it. Interesting. Let me try one more time. Let's see. That. Sorry, I thought it was all good to go.
What happened there?
Did you see something?
no.
Oh no.
Somebody just posted copy and there we go.
Did it get it? All right. Perfect. I'm not sure why it was I had to like close out of the presentation and start it all over again. Sorry about that, everyone, but wanted to make sure that everyone got a chance to see these helpful resources that we've put together here. And then also let you know that all of these resources can be found on our new Care Partners webpage that Sarah will be helpful enough to post in the chat for everyone. But wanted to also thank everyone for joining here today. Some of you posted some great tips in the chat. So thank you for doing that. We'll definitely snap some of those up and also add those to the Care Partners webpage. And we'd love to get your insight and feedback on the new Care Partners webpage. So if you have any additional resources, we'd love to get your ideas. Thank you again to the panel members, Dale, Sylvia, Dana, Marion. Thank you so much for sharing so much today. And thank you all for joining. I know we're at time, so wanted just to let everyone know that a recording of today's session will be available next week on the new Care Partners webpage and then also on NAF's YouTube channel. So thank you all again and take care of yourselves and each other.